and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles, where we discuss all things business, branding, and life. My guest today, I've had the privilege of working with this person and their brand that has a very rich history. I am always so impressed with my interactions with this person, how dedicated he is to maintaining his family business heritage and everything that comes with that. Nick Gray, welcome.
Hi, Tracy. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to having a chat with you and hearing all your tips and secrets about being the director of David Gray's.
I've been looking forward to it as well. It's my first podcast, and
Oh,
I
good.
have been nervous, but just some energy around how's it going to go and where's this going to go. But that's fine. That's why we're doing it, right? So
Of
we'll
course,
unearth a few things along the way, I'm sure.
definitely. And believe it or not, I actually still get nervous. This is our, I think, episode number 54, completely out of my comfort zone. So you're not alone.
It's just a chat, right? It's just a
Yeah,
chat.
completely. Nick, I thought what might be great for our listeners, if you could walk us through the rich history of David Gray's and how it is that you found yourself in the position as director.
Okay. David Gray's goes back, I think, uh, where my grandfather, whom I never met, he was gone before I was born, started up a stock food producing business. And I think back then, things were, Perth was obviously a very small place, and he was a fairly well-connected sort of an individual. And he was best friends with the police chief. I think the fire chief
Oh,
was in his front yard having drinks quite often.
connections.
And I think he was just a man who was a guy who could get things done for people. He started the business back it was actually Leederville, where now the freeway turns into the Mitchell Freeway in the
Oh,
city. So we got told to move, and he it was his decision to come down to O'Connor because at the time, and it was probably not a bad decision. Welshpool Kewdale area didn't really exist, and there were no real industrial areas, and O'Connor was just being opened up, and it was close to the port.
yeah.
So he just decided that would halve his haulage rates from the port, and that'd be a win. So here we are. We were the first building that Multiplex ever built, which is a bit strange, but
Right.
I think one of his friends was Roberts, who had Multiplex,
Mm.
and we still have the plaque on the wall to prove it.
Oh, great.
So fast forwarding, my old man took over. My dad is also known as David Gray, or it's his name, and yeah, he took over when he was quite a young man because his dad, my grandfather. Was he succumbed to cancer. It was only a short battle, I believe,
Ah,
and so Dad sort of got thrown the keys, I think, in his late 20s. So he's really quite early when Dad
wow.
came into the business, and um, I think much like the general history of any family business is you're generally asset rich and cash poor, and Dad sort of had to get off his bum straight away and get on with becoming relevant to
Yeah.
whatever markets he could be relevant in. And at the time, there was supermarkets opening up, and it wasn't just the standard Coles, Woolies, and IGAs. It was the names. Uh, I can remember some of them. Charlie Carter's is one, and
Okay.
a business called Tom the Cheap. Um,
Was it like
these
a
sorts
boutique
of
supermarket sort of thing? Or
Yeah, no, these were just what now you'd know as IGAs. They're all
oh,
family
I
owned, kind
see.
of. Um, I suppose Coles and Woolworths didn't have a duopolistic, they didn't have that dominance, but
Hmm.
it was little old Perth. It was a long way to get here,
Yeah.
and it was David Gray's supplying insecticides. We were well known back in the day for our product Scram, which is a personal insect repellent,
Hmm.
and it was very, very effective. And um, as things evolved, international players came in with the product. Aerogard, I just couldn't remember it there for a second. Aerogard came in, and as a small family operator, we were probably a bit lucky to have the whole market ourselves. And I think, back in the day, we were the household name for those sorts of things. If you needed to kill insects, you just go and get some David Gray product. But I mean, we're really sort of talking about the 70s and 80s now, and you group, and they were in Perth. Their parents would have used our products, and our parents, my parents, obviously, their generation used our products. But and I'm not sure what the age is now, but it's probably 55, 56, 57. Those people people older than all remember the David Gray's brand and Scram and Outdoor Fogger and these sorts of products. But slowly but surely, brands like Mortine and Aerogard, and I mean, there's lots and lots and lots of them. But slowly but surely, they being internationally backed, they can win the war. It doesn't matter how long it takes them. To them, they'll win it. We do our best to fight a good fight, but it's almost impossible to stave them off. So Dad saw that. We were quite, in a sense, prevalent in that space in hardware stores and supermarkets for a long time there. But in about the mid-'80s, when I was a kid, he decided he would. Sorry, I should also say we did have a wing of the business at that point that was operating as a pest control division or service outlet or outfit, and he wanted to get more into the manufacture and the distribution of the chemicals. So, but you can't really sell to pest controllers when you're competing directly against them. So we essentially sold off that portion of the business and then started making the chemicals for pest controllers and distributing other people's products as well as our own. And being that outlet, that's one example of just a little bit of change that we've had to go through, adaptation to remain sort of relevant and in a market space where there's some foreshore business as such. Fast forwarding, I suppose, another decade, there's plenty of evolution that goes through the business all the time. But in the 80s, we sort of ended up having it because we've got a connection with a lot of councils through rodenticides and those sorts of things. My dad's, one of his best friends is actually a bloke who was my godfather, and I'm still very close with his son.
Yeah.
He approached Dad. He was in the had been approached by government to build sidearm rubbish trucks that go around the houses. And this was because they were starting to integrate wheelie bins into household or residential households. So we started getting some inquiry for, would you be able to distribute our products on this basis? And John, he didn't really want to be making the trucks and selling the bins. So said, David, would you be interested in this? And Dad took it on, and away it went, to be honest. So then we ended up in distribution of wheelie bins, and that's still quite a strong division for the company. So in the in about 2000, sorry, pardon my language.
It's all good.
About 2000, I'd finished uni. Dad had this idea that just being a chemical company who sold chemicals and delivered them to the pest controllers would be better if we had a place for the pest controllers to turn up and have a look at some of the equipment and come and talk to the staff. The idea is that they buy 20 litres a sprayer or something like that, Trace, just a wood. So we opened up a direct trade, and we called it a trade centre in essence because we didn't really want to upset the Bunningses of the world and these sorts of people, because
Right.
that they don't like you selling direct. I mean, yeah, we just got to be careful about everything we do.
Of course.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's worked out really well. The trade centre has become quite a hub in O'Connor here for pest control supplies, which
Great.
is great. And that includes lawn care products, and we sell strong ones, residential strength ones,
You guys have an
fertilizers,
amazing
and not.
range.
Yeah,
It's an
it's a
incredible
it's a, it's
range.
a bloody big range.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and that world never stops innovating with chemicals.
Mm.
And obviously, there's chemicals that the government will. There's a government department which administers can be sold, and those chemicals, or all chemicals, have an end of life. They will generally, after a certain period of time, say we've got replacements for that, so that chemical is no longer going to be
I
available.
see.
So there's a bit of a pipeline of new chemicals all the way through, and,
Mm.
and, and that pipeline allows for new chemicals to come on. They're generally chemicals that are under patent or have just come off patent. Um, Generally, chemicals get safer as time goes on,
Mm.
um, and that allows the industry to make a margin, because obviously when everybody's selling the same product, it's a bit of a race to the bottom,
Yeah.
which is a bit of a shame, because we've all got bills and people to pay.
Yeah.
But new chemical means so more money going around for the industry,
Mm.
and so, which is a good thing. So that all happened. Along with that, at the same time,
Yeah, as it would.
we made a bit of a foray into horticultural product distribution.
Hmm.
So WA in the southwest and up in the Ord area up north and Carnarvon, quite well irrigated areas. Horticultural growing is a dependable market, because obviously you're not as dependent on rainfall, and we ended up in that market space as part of a buying group by the name of IHG, which is an Australia-wide group,
Okay.
and it was a fantastic arrangement, and we were good to them, and I think they were very good to us. That we At that stage, we brought a couple of guys in to manage that side of the business. I should say, Dad. I was mere observer to all this. I was busy doing other things with bins and with the trade centre and so forth. But these guys came in and grew it astronomically over really the last 10 years,
Mm.
and ended up in Broadacre Supply, and a real competitor to the likes of Nutrien and Elders, who had sucked up some of the other smaller competitors around the place. And the way I sort of explain that to people is that we ended up, sure, the IGA to that Broadacre industry, and that might be an overstatement or it might be an understatement. I don't really know, but it's a
Yeah.
way to try and explain that we sort of were the independent dealing with the independents.
Mm.
Most companies have an account with all of the major suppliers, but everybody likes to tie their colours to somebody's mast as such.
Yeah.
And we ended up with quite a few shops statewide, and so during, I think just after the COVID sort of era, we a group called Delta Agribusiness, and they took over that division of our business, and that is just another chapter in the David Gray story.
Yeah.
We're out of that, and so really what we were left with now is a company that is back to what it used to be in the 80s and the 90s, really. We've got some consumer retail type products that we battle hard on. We are still a pest control distributing agent to the pest control or pest controllers and the government and mining clients and these sorts of places that need herbicides and insecticides.
Hmm.
Um, we are still a manufacturer of our own chemicals and other people's chemicals. We do quite a lot of white label production in a sense. Uh, and we have a wheelie bin distribution business. So we're well known amongst the municipal or the government, the local government depots and so forth. We're not well known amongst all of them, but they all know of us,
Yeah.
and that is a tight competitive market as well.
Yeah.
We still are quite strong there, and
Hmm.
um, uh, the last development really was we've just recently opened up a trade outlet supply shop in Bassendean, Connor. So we've sort of spread our wings, taken a little bit of a punt, and a little bit of
That's
a
great.
risk, just to throw ourselves out there. It's a bigger market up there.
Hmm.
There was one other supplier who had just moved out of the zone, and it won't be easy. We don't expect to dominate, but unless we start flying our own flag, nobody else is going to. So
Yes.
I think the saying is if you want the same result, just keep doing the same thing. And
Yes.
I thought,
Nothing
well,
changes if nothing
uh,
changes.
why not, Trace? Why not just
Mm.
have a crack? And so that's been a big job, but largely it's not something that we wouldn't do again. It
Yeah.
hasn't been too much of a problem, but at the same time, it hasn't presented too many problems.
Hmm.
Um, but ongoingly, the company now needs to support two more staff members, and we made a significant investment. We'd have to get a return off, or it wouldn't be worth doing it.
Yeah. How big is your team now then?
So beg your pardon.
How big is your team?
So it sort of floats up and down a little because we are a bit seasonal, being mainly an insecticide company, and so
Hmm.
that determines that in spring and summer we would be busier than in winter, and
I see.
autumn's still a busy time, to be honest. But we've stopped making a lot of the chemical by then, sort of running down the stock because you don't really need to have it through
Hmm.
winter. Um, so in the peak times, we probably have 45 to 50,
Yeah.
and that's spread across the factory. Is really the big lackey band on that. That can go from sort of 10 to 25, I would think.
Hmm.
Um, and then we have our sales staff, our admin staff, our in the car staff, um, and I think that's probably takes care of all of it. And some people are part time, and some people are full time, and
Hmm.
yeah. So I like being an employer, but it's bloody difficult to employ, and
Yes.
it's been really difficult, as any small medium sort of business operator would attest. The the last since COVID began. Actually, it's been difficult for the whole of the mining boom in Western Australia since
Yeah.
2006 or seven.
Hmm.
But it really became focal about 6 months through the COVID issue, um, where everybody went from really scared for their jobs and existences to, holy guacamole, I can go and get another job somewhere else, and I
Yeah.
can get a 20% pay increase or however big it was. Or I've always wanted to try something else, so I'm off.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it hasn't really changed. It's still difficult
Hmm.
to get good people.
Definitely.
And
It's very hard.
Yeah, but what hasn't really changed is, other than a big spurt during COVID,
Hmm.
it hasn't really changed from a point of view of sales and margin. It's been bumpy.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're doing okay, sometimes you haven't. The dollar's dropped, so if you're importing, that's become more difficult. But actually, the dollar dropping has dropped a few people out of our competition in consumer packs who were just importing chemicals, and so we've had some wins and some losses, but by and large, we are, we're still strong. We're okay,
Yeah.
but it's about even.
Yes,
It never gets easier. I would have thought that'd be the main message.
definitely. And Nick, I was wondering, what is the total history? Like, when did David grow? Like, what year did it start?
Yeah, I'm going to say it's 1939,
Yeah,
and
wow,
I suppose I
incredible.
can be quoted on that. I just don't know. One of the interesting tidbits and funny things about that when my grandfather was running the business, stock feeds evolved into mixing insecticide with that stock
Hmm,
feed. And I sort of remember this when we were kids, um, and I was a kid in the 80s. And every now and again, you get a news flash come across that there's a locust plague on the way. It's coming. It's been through Adelaide. It's ruined all the crops and for it. And this is, yeah, that stock feed you're mixing. Do you reckon you can um, mix in some insecticide and see? My grandfather would immediately go and mix up 150 barrels of pollard, probably with something we knew that the grasshoppers would eat, and with I don't know, and look again, don't quote me. It could have been something like DDT time, and DDT was is a very it's a magnificent chemical. The only problem with DDT, it just doesn't break down, and
right.
it was very legal, obviously, for many years.
Yeah.
In hindsight, it was a big mistake for governments to allow it, but um, historically, we were one of many who were mixing DDT style products, and
Hmm.
um, you know, we make no apologies for that, of course, but when we were told to. So look, that then that then evolved into a crop spraying business, and we were aerially crop spraying from tiger moths. The tiger moth, I think it's a de Havilland tiger moth, and they're a magnificent biplane. They're a
Yeah.
wing on top of a wing, and you still see them flying around above us in Perth on a Sunday
Mm.
morning. Hobby type guys. Um, and de Havilland rang, I think it was Dad at the time, and when he was a young man, and sort of said, "You guys are buying so many planes. How would you like to do the distribution for them in Australia for us?" So we ended
Oh,
up becoming the distributor for Tiger Moth planes, which was
gosh.
unbelievable. So,
Yeah.
I mean, historically, it's just something that we find is a bit strange, but we were doing that for a little while, and
Wow.
obviously
Talk
that
about a
that plane
pivot,
became
right?
superseded. Beg your pardon?
Talk about a pivot. It just sounds like you guys have pivoted every single
Yeah,
opportunity.
yeah, I think if you're in business, you're there to make money. Primarily, it's not the final game is staying alive, and to stay
Yes.
alive, you must be making money. And I think Dad could sort of see that he makes some money out of it, and I
Hmm.
think everything that he's turned to has either been, um, in a sense, because it would work with what we do. One of the problems that I've sort of found after having sort of taken over, well, absolutely taking over from Dad in the managing director role, is
Hmm.
that we've just got such a diverse business, and it's it's difficult because I've got five genuine different divisions going through my mind at any one time, um, and but that's how we've survived over the years. That's how we have been able to weather storms through high interest rate periods, or economically dull periods. I mean,
Yes.
I recall there was a very dull period. I think it was around 2001, that businesses were going broke just because there just wasn't enough business. It wasn't
Hmm.
for any other reason. Banks weren't as open, interest rates weren't as low. There's many reasons why those guys found it tough, but this company thankfully managed to weather those storms. And and to be honest, that's what I've landed with here, and you've got to be proud that it's lasted that journey.
It's incredible.
I haven't done the maths, but I think it's around 85 odd years. But
Yeah.
yeah, essentially,
Yeah. Wow.
Pretty cool. Hopefully we see 100. Don't
It
know.
is. Yes. Touch wood, touch wood. And Nick, something I was
Where
so
there's life, there's hope, as I say.
yes, always. I was so inspired by the absolute passion that you have, you know. I mean, I know it's the business was passed down to you. Had you always wanted to be a part of the business?
I didn't as a kid.
Yeah.
Well, you're indifferent as a kid. You
Hmm.
want to go fireman or a I was and still am into sailing and wanted to do what John Sanders did and sail around the world and
Yeah.
all of those other things. You don't wasn't it was just always there as when we were kids. And then I recall my sentiment on that at uni was no, I'd rather just go and do my own thing, not
Yeah.
because I didn't want to go work at the company. I just wanted to go and do something, find my own path, you know. So
Hmm.
that was very much my modus at that point. I suppose there's probably an element of go into the family business if you wanted to, if whatever you wanted, if your path didn't turn out.
Hmm.
Um, but that gives you a little bit of confidence in a sense. And I so the story is that I did um, an e-commerce. Well, I did a Bachelor of Business at Edith Cowan University, and uh, I was doing operations management and human resource management as a double major. And
Hmm.
um, the operations management was actually pretty heavyweight. It was a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be, but there was a lot of numbers, and it didn't really. I wasn't afraid of it. It just
Yeah.
was just not doing it for me.
Hmm.
So I switched out of that, and at the same time, I don't even think around and a search engine called um, Ask Jeeves,
Oh, yeah.
and
I remember that.
there's a couple I kind of remember doing assignments on, but Edith Cowan got off the ground with an e-commerce major, and
Hmm.
I mean, I'm sure it would not look anything like this these days. Even, but I thought, well, there's sillier things to do. I suppose the internet's going to be a thing. I'll jump on that, and there was very very early website builders. Marketing. There was lots of things. There was lots of aspects to it, and in the background, I had the HR thing going on, and so anyway, I graduated from there and
Hmm.
went traveling, did all of that, and then I thought, actually, I reckon there's the money in the property game. So I thought, I know how to become a good property guy. I'll become a valuer first. That'll give me all the skills I need to determine what properties I can go and try and make money out of,
Yeah.
and off I went to Curtin and began that. And that was going to end up being a master's degree, which would have allowed me to go and do a year of an internship at the Valuer General's office, which would then lead to a valuer job and blah, 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 blah. It goes on. But in that period, Dad approached me and said, well, we'd like to start this trade centre that I mentioned earlier. We'd like to get into the hort side of things. We want to be a bit more prevalent to the trade, which is the pest controllers and
Yeah.
the government side of it, and the wheelie bins side of it was just another group of products on the price list at that point. You wouldn't have called it a division.
Hmm.
So I begrudgingly sort of came across. I sort of said, Dad, I really want to be in property and find my way there. And he said, look, just come across, just come and see what you think.
Yeah.
It took me about 18 months, and
Oh.
it probably really took me 6 months, but I'm a stubborn sort of individual. And after about 18 months, I decided to give the property away before having finished it. Um, and I still regret that in a sense, but I was done with studying by then. And um, given that I was thinking, look, the David Grain Company, a lot of freedom. It was magnificent to have been sort of brought into an incubator type role where I could watch all of this stuff growing around me. I was introduced to many other sort of high performing, but I wouldn't call them professional, sort of as in uh, these people probably didn't have degrees, but they did teach me how to sell, and they did teach
Yeah.
me what matters, and what matters is people dealing with people, and these sorts of things that I thought than just crunching numbers and doing things by the book all the time. I mean, we
Yeah.
do things by the book, but
Yeah.
you know, it gave me, it coloured in my career, and obviously I could see that the end game would be that um, obvious choice to take over from Dad, but um, there would be that I may be able, maybe eventually given that opportunity, but also what a privilege, and would
Mm.
I be a bit silly to pass that privilege up?
Yeah.
So um, it's been a good journey. You know, Dad's made comment over the years, uh, regretful, and I think so am I, that we worked in two different offices for I think I was here for 22 years overlapping with him, and I never really even the day that I took over him, sort of retired from the business. He still does a day or two a week,
Right.
but literally I moved into his. I'm sitting in his chair right now at his desk.
Yeah.
So
Wow. And it's a
you know we
beautiful
never
desk. I've seen
overlapped.
it.
Oh yeah,
Beautiful
yeah.
office. Yeah.
Uh, so essentially. Dad's regretful that I didn't get into the manufacturing side of the
Mm.
business earlier. Um, but you know, I was busy building the other side of the business, and it wasn't ideal that I didn't get into the chemical side of and the manufacturing side of the business earlier. But I think you know, if I had come across earlier, potentially the other commercial industrial distribution side of the business wouldn't be as strong as it is now. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, we you know was open, and the product flowing and the bills paid and so forth. So, and again, we are at where we are at, and yeah, and we're in a good spot, so it's great.
Yeah, and I think you've really, from what I've learned about David Grays, you've really driven it to that next level. And there was something you mentioned earlier that we spoke about the pivoting, but always kind of adjusting with the times. And I think, for what it's worth, I think you've done that really well.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I can't like claim to all the credit on that at all. Dad's the man on that front,
Mm,
and I think he's probably had a few tense moments and a few sleepless nights over the years. I mean,
as we all do,
um, I have
as
to
business
acknowledge
owners.
that. Yeah, it's never as easy as it looks, and
No.
um, he's the sort of individual that just gets on, writes his list, and just goes about knocking points off that list, and then once
Yeah.
he's done, he'll start a new list. And you know, highly admirable career from him. And I mean, he's still very much part of it. As I say, I talk with him almost daily,
Great.
and he absolutely knows what's going on. He turns 80 in about 3 weeks.
Oh
So
my goodness. Happy birthday to
that's
him.
yeah. But his body's getting slower, but his mind is 100%
Still, yeah.
no change, which is fantastic.
Oh,
So we just yeah, long may that be the case. It's fantastic to still have him because he's
yes.
such a good support. He's such a good brain. You know, he's got all the history. He's got the reasons why we do things a certain way we do them. I'm very lucky not to have lost my father like lots of my friends have at my age,
Yeah.
mid 40s. I'm 46.
Yeah.
It, it can only be put down to luck. So,
Yeah, no, that is very, very lucky. And Nick, I wanted to ask,
but
is
yes,
there, yeah,
adaptively, I will. That's definitely a thing we need to be always have an eye on, Trace. Yeah.
yes, and I think something that you said as well is that there's this perception that, business owners are bulletproof. We making lots of money. We just kind of everything kind of always works in our favor. And even when you tell someone, I have my own business, they think, oh, well, life, it's easy for you because you've got everything down pat. But that's often not the case.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think my own perception on that is that it's really difficult because as the head of the triangle around the place,
Hmm.
um, even if things are looking dicey, you are not allowed to show that. You need your staff to be confident in their own careers, in their own lives, and they're depending on you. And unfortunately, well, not for unfortunately, but just the fact of life is that comes with employment is the assumption that the company that I'm working for is solid.
Yes.
And yeah, look, we're a pretty healthy company these days, but I recall it was well after school that Dad told us, but he would never have told. There was lots of times where he was considering just pulling us out of school that we're at because in hindsight it's an expensive school, but as kids, the sacrifices that need to be made just to pay bills on the home front, let
Yeah,
alone, if people don't pay you, it's difficult unless you've got the money to tell
totally.
that supplier or that creditor, I will be a few days late on this, will be a week late, and you still don't really know. So those sorts of things need to be handled correctly, and I think that experience helps there in a way.
Hmm.
But that stuff, hopefully, you're not learning about that on the day either. Hopefully, your
Yes.
administrative staff are good enough to bring that to you. And I've got excellent administrative staff. So
Great.
another thing that I've just inherited that has just it stands our company in good stead. That I know that I've got conscientious individuals that are not just doing the bare minimum; they are doing the role because that they're playing that role and they're playing their role. Be a responsible, good, not annoying to deal with type company.
Yeah, it makes a
We're
world of
always trying to do
difference.
our best.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, no, we've got some good staff here, and it's worth me just making sure that they're all comfortable. Yeah,
Yeah, at Design Studio Perth, it's the same. Hiring the appropriate team members has really just changed the game entirely. And I actually feel in some ways my team have made me a better lead and a better business owner because when they are, dedicated, they're passionate, they kind of push you to almost lead better, or like you said earlier, to show up with your best face on, even though your life might be falling apart. They just,
yeah,
yeah, they take you to that next level, I've found.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I 100% agree with that. I Yeah, I think underlyingly for me is the thing is that there's this assumption, and
Hmm.
we need to provide certainty on their employment,
Yeah,
and they need to know they've got a future, and not just that future is going to be maintained, but there's going to be growth and excitement in front.
definitely.
So, um, yeah, I think probably I I talk a lot about things I'd like to do with them, and I
Hmm.
will, in a sense, I'm definitely guilty of talking a lot about uh, the one of our guys this morning about I have a lot of small dreams,
Ah,
and this was a small dream, but it was just something I hadn't gotten around to doing, but
hmm.
it would have made two of those staff members' lives a lot easier on a daily basis. And it just is that I just have not gotten there to do that yet. But I think about it regularly, and I'll get there. I will get there, and I'll sort
Yeah.
that, and I'll show them this is what I was talking about, and this is important for me because I know it'll help you do your job. And
Hmm.
I think they need to know that we care about them having a good day and not them not having a tough day.
Yes.
And that is certainly the case for any business owner. I
Hmm.
don't think that any business owner goes around um, trying to make people's lives more difficult
No.
because your staff are literally your arms and legs.
Hmm.
And if you've got a dysfunctional staff member or a team, it can make your life really, really hard. But not
Yeah.
only that, it can start costing you big, and actually it can start really big problems that could spin out of control and
Totally.
could be the end of a business, right? So
Hmm.
to take it to the nth, of course, but um, I, I, so I make sure that I'm on personal terms with as many as possible. It's difficult to be on, but I always say hello, and I always give a smile, and always try and talk with somebody, just ask them how their day's going, or how did you go with that thing yesterday, or whatever it might be. I think that stuff's really important. So I think on the side of that, Trace, is that life's not all about work, as you'd be aware, and often work can be a place where you come to get back to some normality in life. And it's a strange thing. An example I'd give is we could be on a holiday for 10 days and it can be quite an exhausting holiday. And I've got my wife and my kids and maybe some family friends or something with us. But at the end of that holiday, I actually look forward to coming back to back to the business, because not just to get on with things, but that continuity of knowing what you'll get when you get to work.
Yeah,
I also depend on that as much as my staff do. So, that then drives the motivation to continually do things that make it easy, or try and spiral upwards with that stuff rather than becoming stagnant. Then we all reach a pretty dodgy day in life when we don't want to come to our own business, and I'm sure lots of business owners get there. So that keeps me a bit motivated to make sure that I'm constantly got something bubbling, and working on something rather than just maintaining the business all the time. And that's where things like How I Met You come into picture. Standardizing the branding, the Bass and Dean thing is another thing. It keeps everybody a bit more on their toes, and we're not just becoming stagnant and stale.
No.
We have a job to do, and it's not the same job. We're change is in the wings all the time. It's a good thing.
Yeah. And Nick, would you be comfortable to share about your brand and how we work together?
Yes, yeah, I sure can. I mean, we actually came across you a bit by chance, Trace, in a sense,
good.
But I over from Dad. One of the things that I just really wanted to see was, and I'd heard other guys and girls doing it in their businesses, but nailing yourself against the wall with regard to branding, and then everything that you do is aligned. But I didn't know how to approach that. So the internet, when we found you, which was fantastic. I actually don't think it was me. I think it was Andy Smith, who works here in our consumer products. And
yes, that's
right.
And that's right.
He lined it up.
I remember.
Yeah. And
thanks, Andy.
So Andy's a magnificent guy, and got some always got some good input, and it's been excellent for me to learn. I won't get onto it. I know I'm getting off track, but the consumer marketing, the marketing of consumer products to the likes of big hardware and big supermarket is a completely different game, and it's a long game. And I found that we were deficient in lots of areas that we needed to be very strong in, not just mediocre. Getting back to you, so I recall having and I saw eye to eye very quickly on the fact that we needed to align things, and that would lead to a result. And what I had proposed in my own mind aligned with what you were kind of talking about, almost spookily. So that was very good for me to give me the confidence about spending the money. And I don't recall it being overly expensive, but it was an investment that I needed to justify.
Yeah,
and
of course.
We then came together, and I can't quite remember the entire chronology, but the first thing to do was look at the logos, or our what we thought was our logo. And whether it was you, may have been, I think, Rudy, may have been Rudy,
yes,
I'm not sure.
Our corporate designer.
Somebody came to us and said, you've got 28 different logos.
I think that was
out
me,
in
yes.
the big wide world. Yeah, and that was only 28 current logos. That was what was on current products. And which I wasn't really aware. I knew we had some variations here and there, but not
Yeah.
28. So that really actually spoke to the point that I was making to myself was we need to have alignment here, and also if I'm going to do this, I need to be proud of what I'm doing. Not to say well, the same T-shirt that the guy next to me is wearing, and we both got the same bloody logo on it.
Yeah,
Um,
cohesion.
so we looked at we at the time you the logo, the font, the well, the logo font, and then just a standard website font, which I didn't think mattered, but you guys talked us into the fact that that did matter, absolutely. And in hindsight, it really does matter. Of
Yeah,
course,
your visual identity.
again,
Yes.
yeah, it's your visual identity. It's all of these subliminal ways that it works your brand into people's minds, and um, the the process was all about originally we were going to work up our own website, which at the time was not branded that strong, wasn't too bad, but I remember your original feedback, and it gave me a bit of a clear view or a clearer view from an outsider's point of view, a little bit of a critique of this is actually not that good. And I remember
It
thinking, I
was
really
meant
like
well.
that, but yeah, of
Meant
course. Oh
very
yeah,
well.
yeah. No offense taken, but nobody really ever come to me with that critique as such,
Mm.
good, bad, or ugly.
So no one had ever
It really
said?
just spoke volumes that we needed to get on with it. Beg your pardon?
No one had ever said it before?
No,
Yeah.
not well, maybe, but not.
Mm.
I put it this way. I reckon Anne Smith would probably say it's really difficult going to talk to try and the Coles, Woolies, and the rest of it
Yeah.
when I take them three products to talk to, and they've all got different branding on them.
Mm.
And there's probably reasons historically for that. And I think our product, our own proprietary product list is around about 70 or 80 products that
Yeah.
we manufacture here. Um, so, it'll take us 10 years to go through and sort
Oh,
it all out.
easily.
But it's worth starting the journey today. The old saying that the
Yeah.
journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Well,
Yes.
so it hasn't just been valuable to us from a, a product packaging and point of view. It's been important because we've upgraded some of the product. We've also designed new products and integrated the learnings and the colours and the fonts and the logos and those sorts of things into the new. But then obviously we've opened up Bassendean, and we needed to get the livery for Bassendean sorted, and that was a very easy exercise because we had the files on file,
Oh,
the
great.
the,
Yeah.
the logo files, and these people ask for certain types of vector files and that
The
sort of thing, and
EPS.
that is just producible because we got it from you guys and it's there,
Yeah.
and so then their graphic designer and so that made that a lot cheaper, and also
I'm so
we
glad.
weren't making decisions on how should it look. We had all this stuff. It was mocked up in an afternoon. We said yes in an afternoon. Off that went. So that that saved us a lot of time and probably a lot of money. And
Yeah, I'm so glad.
again, we would have been another watershed moment that we would have gotten not wrong, but it wouldn't have been aligned. So
Yeah.
uh, we're just muddying the waters or kicking the can down the road and not really doing the right thing by the business and the brand.
Yeah.
So that's worked out well. We've now rebranded our O'Connor Trade Centre, which looks great,
Oh, great. You have to send me
and
some photos. I'd love to see.
all of the one thing it's one thing to talk about the external customers, but the internal customers, the people who work for us, now understand that we are an organised group of organised business. It's a brand new sort of logo. It refreshed the company.
Mm.
Everybody's got the same logo on their shirt. We now know we are not navy blue or lime green or red. We even did red shirts there for a little time.
Oh,
We are a dark green shirt if need be.
yeah.
I mean, we can't. I don't really care about the color of the shirt, to be honest. But it's
Yeah.
the logo. But put it this way, we're a darker green now, that or a darker navy. I feel a bit guilty when I push wheels onto the staff members, but um, yeah. So, but that it's formed an identity. It's formed an
Yeah.
identity for the staff to go. Actually, this is what we are, and eventually they form in behind that. And I hope, I don't know, but I hope that they think it looks okay and that they feel proud walking into a customer's premises to talk with them and discuss their needs, and they feel good about wearing a good looking logo with,
Yeah.
a brand that's consistent um, across all of the sort of divisions. So that's been, I think, something that people don't recognize, but you get branding, and if you didn't have it before, even your staff members are a bit lost as to who they are and what they're doing.
Definitely. Yeah.
And on the backside of this, we've kind of fixed that as a bonus to fixing everything else.
Awesome.
This is going to take years, and I don't want to make it out like our staff were walking around
Yeah.
bewildered
Yeah.
before, but we have a staff meeting now, and it's everybody's looking the same. It's great, it's just a good thing. So overall, the we've it's been highly valuable. We've now started promoting the website via
Great.
the social standard old social channels, and through that we have seen lots and lots of growth in the visitorship of the website. I I was thinking about the other day, it's increased about sevenfold, which is fantastic
Wow.
because it was already pretty healthy.
Yeah.
And I think there's many, many reasons for that. But where you and your organization have helped is that when they arrive at our website, say it used to be 100 people, I'm not actually quoting the numbers,
Yeah.
people a day that are going through our website, um, they're all seeing the one vision. They're all seeing the same thing. And um, that's and we're proud to promote it. Whereas before we might have been scrambling, are we putting the right, does this look good? Does this
Yeah.
look,
And the confidence.
now, good,
Yeah.
bad or ugly, we just are what we are.
Yes.
I think it looks good. I hope that the staff and the customers think it looks good, but either way, we're not appearing disorganized and oh, is this the same David Gray's? Is this David Gray's, and so forth. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think the going through the process with your organisation was easy. I think it was cost effective, and it was only a small part of all of these other things that we then get onto.
Hmm.
No point getting on with those other things if you don't have the platform right, and
No.
that's what we got. So,
Yeah. Well,
so I say
firstly,
thanks. Yeah, it's been good. That's been great.
yeah, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you shared that. And I love that you shared the unity that is created, as part of the culture in your business as well, because I think a lot of business owners actually underestimate how powerful that is. Because as humans, we spend majority of our life at work and people want to have that sense of belonging. So I'm really grateful that you shared that. Thank you so much, Nick.
No, no, that's good. And yeah, no, well, I think they're all they're all the salient points that came from doing the exercise. And I did have to justify the spend, and I think there was a few things that I got kind of knocked back on, to be honest. But the main things that we tackled were all the most important things, and actually, in hindsight, were no-brainers now. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and it
it's been
and it's
great.
great to hear you've had a return on that investment as well, which is music to my ears. So that makes me love even more what I do. So thank you so much
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sharing.
yeah. No, no, that's no problem. And yeah, no, it's great.
And Nick, throughout I guess your career, have you had any words of, life wisdom that you live by, or any advice that someone has shared with you that helps you perhaps get through those tough times?
Yeah, I look. There's probably a few scanning through um, over the years. There's a pearl of wisdom that comes out of every day, I'm sure.
I agree.
When I after I didn't mention before, but straight after I graduated from the e-commerce major,
Mm.
I was working in an internet company because of that, and this company doesn't exist anymore. No company that started up back then really exists. Even Yahoo and Ask Jeeves, they don't really exist
Yeah.
anymore. So,
No. Scary.
um, but it was a good space to be in at the time, and the gentleman, his name was Jeff Dunstan, and he'd had a really interesting life. Magnificent bloke, had done the Hawaiian Ironman, which,
Wow.
if you don't know what that entails, that's more or less hell on earth.
It's hectic.
He'd also been very successful in business. He ended up buying this business and was my boss. And I think he sort of took me under his wing in a sense. And he, I mean, I'm early 20s, and I sort of was talking to him about things, and he just said, you know, you're not going to work for me for the rest of your life. You've got a magnificent life, and you'll do well in life, was what he said. And it gave me that, a bit of confidence, just that alone. But what he said to me was that what all young people need to realize is that whatever you want to do, it's actually all out there. All of the tools to get you to what you need to achieve are actually out there.
Mm.
Um, and I think that a lot of people forget that. I think, even business owners that are doing it forget that there's facility everywhere, and people, um, you just need to start to picture how you will tackle a certain
Yeah.
problem, or the next step in what do I do now? This is plateaued. Where do I go next?
Mm.
So, I think just having that open mind to, um, yeah, I don't want to get too sort of, the standard old comments. I don't want to go too far with all of that
Oh,
stuff,
please do if you'd
about
like to, but
successes
yeah.
there and all,
Huh.
all that sort of stuff. But actually, it's all true.
Yeah.
Um, and you just need to realize that the tools are there, and the world
Mm.
provides, and people are kind, and people actually will help, and
Yes.
they'll actually help for not very much. And as long as you keep your reputation intact and keep
Very
your
important.
trustworthiness front of mind,
Mm.
people will actually help you, whether that's they'll go a long way, or whether they'll just say, hey, mate, maybe not, don't go in that direction. I reckon there's probably more opportunity in the other direction. Or they just give you the confidence to go the way you want to go. It's to talk with people about as many things as you can, because they will give you the help, direction, the confidence. They'll even buy into your ideas. They may say something, and that work on your subconscious through the night. And then you
Yes.
in the morning might think, that's still on the cards, but I might deprioritize that. I might put that back a little. I think I certainly am guilty of seeing a lot of opportunity, having to, or wanting to do a lot of things immediately, but
Mm.
it's
Same.
really hard. You end up being the guy or the girl who does that
Mm.
yourself a lot of the time, because your staff might be able to draw on their support. They may not have the skill. They may
No.
not have every part of what you're asking them to help you achieve. So um, that's, I suppose, where it comes back to. It's all out there. The internet has been an amazing tool for facilitation of skills,
Yes.
uh, I mean, when we went through the process with you guys, I'd been looking for a service like Loom, which is just a screen
Yeah.
recorder,
Yeah.
for, I don't know, 3 years or something.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, I think we bought some in-house technology to help us with it, but it was clunky, it was uneditable, and you had to pay on the month, and it's just ridiculous. So the cloud-based world on the internet, YouTube, and I'm talking about services like Loom,
Mm.
services like payment platforms like Stripe or like PayPal or one of these sorts of groups. We manage our websites in-house. Again, we needed to skill up on that. The more you skill up, the more
Mm.
you can do it in-house, not have to continually shell out money for somebody else to do it.
Yes.
Um, I think these things they've really helped with us getting things done on the smell of an oily rag over the years. And
Mm.
we, the phrase is, there's a solution, you just have to find it.
Yeah.
It's there. The solution is not always just throw the bank at it, throw the money at it, because it's a quick way to lose a lot of money.
Mm.
And so, yeah, if we're not absolute experts in something and we need expertise, well, then we farm it out. We get help,
Yeah.
as we did with you guys, and largely we knew where we were going with you guys, but actually you're a professional in their field to give you the backing that you're on the right track, and
Yes.
that gives you the confidence to put yourself out there. So that was one thing that was really important for us. But this guy Jeff, I remember him saying to me just over and over, Nick, whatever you want, mate, it's all out there for you. And
Yeah.
he was talking about his business at the time, and me being a salesperson in his business, and the business is all out there. The facilities to succeed are just all out there. And
Yeah.
he had done well I think he had wine. He had bottle shops and things before
Okay.
bottle shops was monopolized again. Not monopolized, but before all of the big bottle shop type groups that sort of came around, and wine was on the rage, all the rage. He was the first sort of guy in Perth to have big wine parties and tasting parties,
Oh,
and
right.
you know,
Yeah.
it was a door, but he just tried something and it worked
And
out.
it
So
worked.
those sorts of things. He was a really good. Don't talk about Jeff at all. I mean, it's a long, long time ago now. My wife would never have heard his name, but he was a big influence on me in the early days. Yeah, the other there's a few things. Small victories win the race is a big
Mm.
one. It's a
Yes.
game of inches, and again, I sound like a footy player, don't I? But it couldn't be more important
Yeah.
to recognise small victories and be proud of that as a moment or as a
Definitely.
thing.
Mm.
One of the things that I have learnt, and it's never really been a saying, I don't think that anybody's ever said to me, it possibly has, but
Mm.
is that my belief is it takes a minimum of 10 years. You should budget 10 years to creating a brand
Yeah.
that ends up being instilled in somebody's mind. And that's really what brands are, is
Yes.
being something in somebody's mind.
Yeah.
And um, that's what I would have. That's
No,
what I
I
did,
agree.
boil it
Yeah.
down to anyway, Trace.
Mm.
You're
I
the
agree. No,
master at
no,
this stuff.
I agree.
But yeah, and 10 years is a long time. And even if you did everything right, there's still a lot of things that can damage that particular brand
Always.
along the way. And so you nurture them, you care for them like they're one of your offspring. And, you know, eventually you build a presence, and 10 years goes quickly, but
Oh, it
actually while
does.
you're doing it does go quickly, and all of a sudden you've got something that nobody else has got, and
Mm.
actually nobody can take from you either.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing more important in business than having a strong brand that people trust and recognize. So I think where I'm going with this is that it takes time and you should have patience, but
Yeah.
the patience is the first thing, but the development stage to stage to stage, you're the only person that knows and cares about the next phase of that brand's upbringing.
Mm.
It and it it it, it there's always a solution to the next part of that. It could be a product derivative. It could be a different pack size. It could be, um, we strangely enough, their sort of brand, and for which we sell, it's an agricultural rainwear brand, and of that was, well, we've got a good outfit here.
Yeah.
It's a magnificently built product. It's comfortable and it's lightweight, and all of the people who wear it love it. So is the next stage to go to high vis for mine site safety and so forth, you know? So there's all these decisions that you need to make. Well, okay, if we're going to do that, what are the next steps? Where through it all the way to the end of that 10-year run? And it might be longer than that, might be shorter than that. The masters probably don't take 10 years, but if you're Johnny anybody off the street like I am, you are thinking about it, and as long as you're thinking about it, you'll do a good job of it.
Yeah.
But it takes time, and you've got to be patient. Yeah.
The patience is something I have to work
Those
on,
are the things
trying
that
very
sort of have
hard.
stuck in my mind anyway. Yeah. And uh, I think there's probably one last one that
Yeah.
I actually, Kerry Packer, he never told me these words, but
Huh.
it was actually the guy who was playing Kerry Packer uh, in the movie about Kerry Packer,
Oh, okay.
which just sounds a bit strange. But the phrase was, "I've got the vision. I'll provide you the pathway to get there." And
Yeah.
it was so, that's a massive paraphrase, but it was all about vision to
Yes.
pathway, and
Mm.
um, it, it there's really no point coming to work in the morning if you don't have an end game vision.
Yeah, completely.
And that really is a difficult thing, because that is trying to tell the future.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so the vision for us and our business is, it's it's immature, I would suggest, at the moment. Although there are aspects of it that we know that we want to be recognisable in Perth. Let's suggest, you know, we want to be a brand that people will recognise and trust and respect. And then if that can be the case in Perth, well, we'd love that to be the case in Western Australia. And if that can be the case in WA, then the whole of Australia. I
Yes.
will stop at that. I don't really ever want to become international. But in a sense, you know, maybe we do. You know, I don't know. But
Yeah.
at the same time, um, the vision to grow your own brand self in people's minds is one thing, but
Mm.
um, sort of laser focused down to an individual product and where do we want to go with that particular product. So the trick is to get all these visions kind of aligned, all moving in the same path at the same time. I think some visions will help other visions, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Some
I
products will
do.
help other products, and those products will help the brand, and the brand
Yeah.
will help the products, and so forth. So,
Mm.
but having some end goal in your own mind about how you'd like things to look, you know, and if that's, I want to hand the company to my children, or if that is, I want to list on the ASX, if that is, I want to sell some or all of the business. And I'm not specifically talking about me, I'm
Mm.
just sort of talking
Yeah,
about business owners.
the bigger
These things
vision. Yeah.
constantly go through business owners' minds. And, you know,
Always.
when I want to put my feet up, well, that's 20 years away, let's say, for me, maybe for
Yeah.
you too.
Yeah.
But we all need to now have the vision of what it's meant to look like, so we can hand the keys to somebody, because
Yeah.
otherwise all of that hard work goes down the tube.
It does.
Um, you may or may not get paid, but as in on the sale of the business,
Mm.
depending on what you do. But yeah, it's certainly not my vision. Is I'd like to do what Dad did, and be able to pass it down to my kids and
Yeah.
family. And yeah, I'm a bit petrified of ever selling out or getting out, because you can't. You know, we're okay.
Mm.
We're not a brand as strong as you know, Maya or one of those sorts of family-owned brands. Maya's obviously not in the Maya family anymore, but just trying to think of you know, these family-owned companies, you can't get what we've got anymore. You just
No,
can't.
it's rare.
It's almost impossible to create it.
Mm.
So there's a lot of value in that. I'm currently the custodian of that. It's only in my middle sort of career that I've come to recognize that there's value there
Hmm.
in order to, as I say, we couldn't just do what we're doing. It would be very, very expensive to start what we've got from
Yes,
scratch.
it would. Yeah.
Um, and even then, you still be trying to fund the thing for 10 years while you try to open people's minds to your branding.
Mm.
So I'm highly protective of that. But you just never know what's around the corner. You just don't, you'll never know. So that's got to be the vision from my perspective is we just continue to try to um, tidy things up, increase margins where possible, not to be greedy, not to dominate, but to be a participant in all the markets we participate in, to be respected. That's what industry should be about, I think, is making sure that people haven't forgotten about you is a big thing.
Yes.
But I certainly think I understand why companies go for market domination, but I've very rarely ever. There's always a way to go around somebody. There's always a way where people try to monopolize things, um, but it very rarely works out.
Yeah.
And so that's not it's not to become market dominant in any of our
Mm.
games. We'd love to, but it needs to be more about making sure internally we are operationally sound and we are efficient and we are the other things that about the company that matter long term. And if I suppose if you arrive at a point where you're market dominant, magnificent,
Yeah,
fantastic. But I
definitely.
think just to have that as your vision is a little bit throwaway, to be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah.
Yeah. Nick, thank you so much for all that you've shared. It's really been a privilege. I feel like we could probably speak for 5 hours, and I think we've had the privilege of hearing, your perspective of 85 years of a history-rich brand, which has been really great. So thank you so much for all that you've shared with us today.
That's great, Trace. Yeah, it's gone quickly, and we can continue the conversation. It's been a good chat, and I appreciate it. I think I've done most of the talking.
I love it. That's the whole
Uh,
point. It's about you, not me.
No, and I enjoy the podcast, and I listen sort of as much as I can to
Thank
it, and
you.
um, it is a good thing what you're doing. There's a lot
Thank
of
you.
people around that probably need to hear that others are in similar positions to them with their businesses, whether they're thriving or not. A
Yeah.
thriving business doesn't mean it's any less stressful. It's you
No.
know it, right?
Oh,
So
I do.
and it's also a good thing that you delve into the history of businesses. I really enjoyed the lady who business, and I mean it's a while ago I listened to this.
Yeah. Was that Sophie's
I
one?
really enjoyed the postal business. It
Yes,
was
Sophie
it was a
Stott.
business about
Quickmail.
yes,
Yes, yes.
it
Yeah,
was just a
Sophie's a
good
lovely
story.
woman.
And that's a story of a pivot over time, but had to be done. That'd be dead and buried now if business was still the way it was when it started.
Yes.
So um, Cameron, the guy with the IT,
Yes.
that was a pivot into a specific market play. Fantastic. I know Cam from school, but
Yes.
I was just as interested hearing in his story, and because he did it himself, and he has had some hard times. No business
Yeah,
owner has no hard times. So,
true.
it's just good. And so keep doing it. We're all going to keep listening, and
Thanks, Nick.
yeah, it's good to get the vision on it.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm very passionate about this because I do believe there's a lot of facade on social media that makes it out like business is easy, whilst it's very rewarding, it's very challenging, and we literally like give our life to it. So thank you so
Yep.
much for, filling my cup and sharing that with me because that means a lot to me as well.
Yeah. No problem at all. Well, thank you
Oh,
again too.
yeah, thank you. So for our listeners, we'll pop all the links to connect with Nick in the show notes. And Nick, you'll have to come back next year for sure.
No worries. Sounds like a
Great.
plan.
Thank you so much for your
Thanks,
time.
Trace.
Take care. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.